I'd expect a lot of mirrored fighting moves. There's none at all, in fact. And I'd expect to see a lot of physical stalemates during the fights, and none of that happens either. So I'm just very puzzled.
Hi, I'm Kit. This is Vernon, and we just watched Gemini Man. So Vernon, what did we just watch?
Kit, I think we just watched Ang Lee make a Hollywood action cheese film that John Woo should have directed.
Cheese?
Cheese. It's very cheesy. It's very campy.
You think John Woo makes campy Hollywood action movies?
Yes. And he made them very well. Ang Lee, that's not a strong suit.
So what didn't work in this movie?
It felt too serious. It didn't feel preposterous enough. The action set pieces were kind of mundane.
What?
It disagrees, but then he's not seen good John Woo.
Okay, what's the good John Woo?
Good John Woo is Broken Arrow.
Yes.
Good John Woo is Face Off.
No.
Incredibly preposterous premise, but manages to be so ridiculous and over the top, audience don't notice it's over the top and preposterous, and they go along with it.
Hard Target.
As well as that, yes.
You like Hard Target?
Yeah. Better Tomorrow, I think. That was his Hong Kong period, but then Hollywood really has borrowed quite a lot from Better Tomorrow.
I thought this was a decent movie, but yeah, it left me a bit cold. I didn't feel really moved by it as much as I did by
The trailer was fantastic. The trailer was shot like a John Woo movie.
like any of the Bond movies, or even something like Shooter with Mark Wahlberg. I was actually hoping for it to be a bit like one of the Bond movies where it's just a subplot. I think it's Bond 2 or 3, where he goes up against another operative that was trained the same way he was, and they have this chase and shootout in Moscow. And that I felt quite strong dramatically and emotionally. It's like he's fighting himself. Okay, just to be clear, I'm talking about Jason Bourne. I'm not talking about James Bond, okay?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of Skyfall, the Bond movie which also had Bond fighting against a former operative who went rogue, and the emotional chaos and sort of cat and mouse chase, and genre-savvy cat and mouse chases, also what I expected from this movie.
Yeah, but it didn't deliver. I mean, the action was there, the story was okay, the story wasn't totally predictable, so there were some small surprises, but somehow it just didn't work. I don't know why.
It could be the difference between the trailer and the movie itself. I mean, in the trailer, we know that Will Smith is a top assassin who has been secretly cloned and by the government, and the government is sending his clone to kill him off.
And that's what the movie was about.
But the movie took way too long to actually reveal the clone plot.
I thought that was a strength. I thought a slow, strong build-up is good storytelling.
A slow burn is good storytelling. Hemming and hawing before you get to the point is bad storytelling. To me, the film felt very hesitant to pull out the stops. And when you have something as preposterous as this premise, as John Woo knew, you really have to hit the ground going. You really have to amp up the action. The moment you have a slow burn, there goes your plot and your believability.
Okay, Broken Arrow is not really a John Woo movie. I think that was his second one after Hard Target, and Hard Target didn't do too well. And he shot it almost straight as the script was written. And I think that's also why that was his best movie. You don't have this weird sensibilities, and except for the
Visuals,
action.
I think he has very good visual sensibility.
Yes, but not storytelling. And Broken Arrow was written by the guy who wrote Speed. I think I can't remember his name now. So yeah, I mean that's a damn good script.
This script, the script of Gemini Man, was written by one half of the team that brought you the final season of Game of Thrones. People, what could you expect?
Yeah, but he also brought you the first few seasons of Game of Thrones.
He adapted the first few good seasons of Game of Thrones from George R.R. Martin. That's another story.
David Benioff, in case you're wondering who we're talking about.
Here's my problem with this movie. The script is really so-so, and it really needed the style, the sensibility of a John Woo to carry it through.
I don't think John Woo could have saved the movie.
Or the script.
John Woo cannot save any script. I'm sorry. He's an action guy, he's not a story guy.
Yes, but let us get back to the actual director of this movie, Ang Lee. This guy does good scripts. I mean, this guy does
sometimes.
movies with really good scripts.
Sometimes.
Even if they're really small movies of little consequence, he does make a lot out of them. Like the very underrated Woodstock movie.
I first saw him in The Winter Storm.
Ice Storm.
Oh, Ice Storm, okay. And I didn't know who he was, and I thought, wow, I mean, this is a movie. I can't remember what else I saw after that, but then the one that I really remember was The Hulk, which was, oh man, oh man.
It was thinking man's serious prestige movie about a superhero.
I'm so surprised that Hollywood dared give money to Ang Lee to direct another supposedly action movie. But at least this time he delivered. At least this time this really is an action movie.
Yeah, he kind of did, well, if you compare this to the Hulk, it's better than the Hulk.
But I guess you can tell because, I mean, there was a lot of action put on the drama also, and not just the action. And they did put in a lot of effort into the action, like the motorbike chase. I mean,
it was actually one of the better choreographed set pieces in the movie.
But somehow
it's the best choreographed,
especially at the end where young Will Smith.
Will Smith fights Will Smith several times in this movie.
Yeah, when he uses the motorcycle as a weapon, that was like, wow. But really, it really left me feeling a bit cold. It was like, yeah, you know, that's great action, but you don't feel it in your gut the way you feel it when you watch one of the Jason Bourne action sequences. And it's not the shaky cam. Please don't tell me it's shaky cam. Please don't tell me that Jason Bourne works because of the shaky cam. It's not it.
To be fair, I didn't watch any of the Jason Bournes. True story.
Excuse me, we have to cut this video short as I go and fire my co-reviewer here and get a substitute.
For some reason, the cloning or genetic science in this movie is that if you clone make a clone of Hitler, you really get Hitler. Despite however different upbringing and nurturing you give him, he will still end up as Hitler. So Will Smith versus Will Smith, top assassin versus top assassin, you'd expect far more symmetry that you'd see in a typical John Woo gunfight bullet ballet scene.
I think it's because the Will Smith wasn't given a strong enough motivation.
Which Will Smith?
The older one, or both actually.
Yeah, in fact both.
But because actually the older Will Smith is the main character. The younger one is really a supporting character anyway. And Jason Bourne is like he's like trying to find out his origins, or he's trying to make up for what he did in the past. I mean the part where he goes to Moscow to apologize to the daughter of the two people that he killed. That was really powerful. And also the things around it, like he took the risk of going all the way there, and the people tracking him couldn't even figure out why he was doing it. They were puzzled. What's there in Moscow for him? Where is he going? They just didn't understand him. So there was no similar detail or strong drive here, I feel, aside from just like, okay, staying alive, oh, okay, that's my clone, I want to save my clone. Somehow that didn't really feel emotional.
It feels a little haphazard. There are several action set pieces based on the assassination attempts on old Will Smith by young Will Smith. They take place in Georgia, in Budapest.
Georgia, America, not Georgia, Europe. But actually, that part felt a bit like Mission Impossible or James Bond. They are like taking you to like different exotic locations for the visuals, and it works.
And to meet several ham-acting villains or villainous characters.
I thought the acting was good.
Yeah, acting was good, and in fact, perfectly suited to the movie, which requires over-the-top stuff, and there's just not enough over-the-top stuff in this movie.
No, I mean, come on,
It's those these little moments are too few and far in between.
And Mary Elizabeth Winstead, of course, superb acting. Worth watching for her alone. I'm a big fan of Mary Elizabeth Winstead, but I did not recognize her here.
Yeah, because she didn't look like her. She looked like a younger version of Sigourney Weaver.
It's either her hairstyle or really her acting is so good that she becomes like a different character. I was wondering, wow, this actress is good. Who is she? Then I saw the credits and said, oh, okay.
Yeah, but Will Smith, you can tell it's Will Smith.
But him playing his younger self was good. It felt like a totally different person. And actually, I think they didn't have to bother going through all the stuff of using himself as his double and then digitally de-aging him. They could just have used another actor, because they look different anyway and act differently, which they should.
So it's a little bit of too much effort wasted on a certain angle of the movie that they didn't really need to put in that much effort.
And that might also be one of the reasons why the script was in development hell for 20 years. They were waiting for the technology to make it possible.
But in the meantime, they skipped a lot of leading men. They had Arnold.
Okay.
They had Mel Gibson.
I'm still not.
They had Bruce Willis.
Okay, okay.
The script feels kind of dated because it really is a script from 20 years ago, and all the actors they originally wanted to cast as a leading actor here kind of passed along until they really got old. Then it ended up with Will Smith and not Tom Cruise, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
I assume that at one point they must have decided on John Woo for the director's chair, and somehow his career kind of stalled in the past few years. So here we go, Ang Lee.
I don't think it's so much the leading men that passed the movie by, but it's the other movies. I think if this came out like 20 years ago, it would have been a lot better in comparison. But post Jason Bourne or even John Wick, I mean, these really raised the bar. So the standards now are really super high. So.
Yeah. And of course, we must remember that Rian Johnson did make Looper with Bruce Willis. It bears a high similarity to premise of this movie. Older assassin getting hunted down by younger version of himself. And I think if you just take that premise, I think Looper was a far better made, better told, tighter story than this one.
Oh, it was very different. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet. It's on Netflix. I'm going to watch it. I read the script though, and a nice part of it was that the older Bruce Willis did not respect his younger self. He treated him like shit. Yeah.
Which I think is far more realistic than how the older Will Smith treats a younger Will Smith in this movie.
It was more amusing.
Yes. And again, the entertainment value. I mean, you literally have a guy being stalked by a younger version of himself, and what transpired, the dynamics between old Will Smith and young Will Smith in this movie are really, is that the best you could do? I mean, the premise is promising, the execution is, what it is.
But the visuals are good. Seriously, like what I said earlier, the locations, they really made very good use of their locations. They look beautiful. And the cinematography, the shadow detail is beautiful. You just look at the shadows, you look at the backlit subject, you say, oh, it's so pretty, it's so pretty. And yes, it is shot on an Arri Alexa.
Well, I mean, yes, Hungary and Colombia were great locations, beautiful locations in which you had several chase scenes.
But they also looked very authentic, very unique.
Because they were shot on location, I suppose.
Yeah, but they were shot well on location.
Shot very well, in fact. But But really, is that why we go to watch this particular movie?
That's why we watch this genre, this Mission Impossible, James Bond genre.
This genre, but with this premise that guy and his mirror image are duking it out. What I pay more attention to is possibly the fight choreography. And aside from the very well scripted motorcycle fight, man versus motorcycle, in case you're wondering, the choreography and of the fight scenes in this movie is just about average. You wouldn't say that this choreography is kind of unique. I'd expect a lot of mirrored fighting moves. There's none at all, in fact. And I'd expect to see a lot of physical stalemates during the fights, and none of that happens either. So I'm just very puzzled.
No,
if they are clones and behave and think exactly like each other, they should be fighting to stalemates.
there were a bit like in Colombia where old Will Smith throws a grenade. and then young Will Smith shoots it back at him with his gun. Well, there was a bit of this mirror matching there.
Yeah, but it's just very incidental. Whereas, I mean, John Woo would have played it and milked it for what it's worth.
Okay, aside from John Woo, you're saying that the fight choreography really isn't that impressive. So what would you consider impressive?
John Wick fight choreography is impressive. Equilibrium fight choreography was impressive.
It looked nice, but it was really stupid. The thing about Equilibrium is that it was like very stylized, and it made a certain kind of sense, even though it's not realistic at all, the gun kata. But yeah, it brought a certain something different and nice to look at.
Yeah, I mean, after all, if Will Smith is the best assassin and has skills nobody has in this particular universe, you'd expect him to fight a little differently. Show me why he's so good that the government will want to clone him.
But only make 2 clones of him?
Really?
Or are they lying? I mean, shouldn't they have a pipeline of Will Smith's one every year or one every 5 years at least? And just him? Really? They don't have like different clones that are good at different things? I mean, you have one guy who's good as a sniper, but also as a close quarters combat guy, and also as a vehicle stunt guy. That's very unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, Benedict Wong, aka Wong from Marvel Avengers, plays a getaway transport guy. Why didn't the government think, if he's so great at his job and no one else can do what he does, shouldn't they clone him as well?
Maybe they did.
Uh-huh.
That's the sequel. Yeah, so even the premise wasn't like really well or believably developed.
Yeah, I mean, for such a conspiratorial premise, there's very little paranoia in this film, surprisingly. I mean, it feels way too mellow for me. And I think being too mellow is one of the characteristics of Ang Lee. Which is why I think really he was the wrong guy to direct this film.
It's not like they really made a lot of mistakes. It was just,
They didn't do enough.
yeah, just meh, very meh.
For a 2-hour plus movie,
A Will Smith blockbuster.
with that trailer they made, I expected far more, really.
So, we'll see you next week.
Bye!